I don't think that Justice Thomas would rule against something that he's actively engaged in. Do you? Let's be realistic.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me.
Really? It would not surprise you if Justice Clarence Thomas voted to repeal the rights of interracial couples to be married?
Or he could say that moving forward, they're against the law. Absolutely.
It's kind of a weird thing, I know, but there is a need in our society, in our existence, the way we work. There is a need for people to believe crazy stuff. What am I talking about? Well, you can't hardly turn on the TV without seeing a show about Bigfoot. Finding Bigfoot. Gonna find Bigfoot. We're gonna go out, we're gonna find Bigfoot. Nobody's ever found him. And I think there's a very good reason why they haven't found him, and that's because Bigfoot doesn't exist. But to live around here in the Pacific Northwest, you'd think Sasquatches were everywhere. But oddly enough, nobody's ever found one. But there are people who passionately believe that there are Sasquatches and that there are big feet everywhere, and you just got to find them. There are people who believe in the power of crystals. People who believe that if you just hold a crystal a certain way or a certain color or a certain direction or a certain, I don't know, shape, that it will cure all your ails. People sending me this crap all the time. Hey, Dave, I know you're in a lot of pain. Here's a crystal. Try this. If crystals actually worked, why don't they work? Because they don't. But there are people who passionately believe that. There are people who passionately believe in astrology. What stars were in what house when you were born determines your destiny. And they believe this to the point where some years ago, Carl Sagan even talked about it on Cosmos, and the fact that every newspaper in the country runs an astrology column, but almost none of them run an astronomy column. It was weird. And of course, people passionately believe in racism, as we've seen in the past few days. There are still people who believe that one race is superior to another, and they passionately believe this because they have to, because they're dedicated to the proposition that all men are not equal. And then there are the politicians. Politically, they need you to believe crazy stuff. And I speak today of one Representative Marilyn Strickland, Democrat, state of Washington, 10th District, which is not my district, I want to be clear. But it's a district fairly close to where I live. It's Tacoma, Pierce County. Marilyn Strickland is a freshman congresswoman who was recently elected and was formerly the mayor of Tacoma. And she is a dyed-in-the-wool liberal. She is a leftist. She is not a member of the squad, but she is definitely leftist. Her positions are exactly what you would expect from a leftist politician. Moreover, she is a shill for leftist nonsense. I mean, she is really all about it. She won't hesitate to repeat left talking points. She is not an independent thinker, which is unfortunate. But what do you expect in today's world, right? What do we figure is going to happen? Marilyn Strickland was interviewed on another podcast this past week, and you heard a little bit of it at the beginning of the show, where she talks about if Roe v. Wade is overturned, and she believes that it will be, interracial marriage is next. And she believes, wholeheartedly, that Clarence Thomas, Justice Clarence Thomas, an African American, is somehow or another going to be the justice that overturns interracial marriage. He's going to be the justice that somehow or another makes it illegal for white people to marry people of color. And she says this with all seriousness, which of course makes me wonder, does she actually believe this, or does she actually know that Thomas is married to a white woman in an interracial marriage and that they have been married for many, many years happily? Nor does she seem to know how it is that we got to allowing interracial marriages in the first place, which really isn't all that surprising that she doesn't seem to know anything about the case that overturned interracial marriage bans in the United States. In 1924, Virginia passed a law that stated that white people, cannot marry colored people. Their words, not mine. That included African Americans, it included Hispanics, it included people who demonstrated physical characteristics of another race, quote unquote, even if they didn't necessarily live or work or look that way. And in 1958, couple, her name was Loving, got married in the state of Virginia. And they were arrested for getting married. They were sentenced to 1 year in prison in the state of Virginia for the crime of getting married. She was black, he was white. And they appealed it to the Supreme Court, the state of Virginia, which said, oh no, these laws are perfectly okay. And so the Lovings, well, her name was Loving, appealed it to the United States Supreme Court. Now remember that they were arrested and sentenced in 1958, 1959. The United States Supreme Court did not hear or rule on this case until 1967. So for 8 years, roughly, this couple, whose crime was getting married, kind of sat in limbo. Virginia's argument about the Lovings, Virginia's argument in front of the case, in front of the Supreme Court of the United States, Virginia's actual argument was that it's not a violation of equal protection and due process because, follow me here, follow me, it's not a violation because the penalty was equal for both whites and blacks. In other words, if a white person married a black person, they both went to jail for a year, so therefore it's equal. So it can't be a violation of equal protection. That is the state of Virginia's actual argument in 1967 to the United States Supreme Court about why blacks and whites should not be allowed to marry. The Supreme Court, in a unanimous ruling, basically said, no, you're essentially telling people that they can't get married solely on the basis of race. And that is a violation of equal protection and due process. It's a violation of the basic rights of Americans. You can't do that. It ended all race-based restrictions on marriage in the United States. Now, you might think to yourself, well, okay, that ended it. So from 1967 on, all these laws that banned interracial marriage, and there were many, were struck down. No, they weren't. In 2000, the state of Alabama was actually one of the last states to remove its restrictions in 2000. And in 2014, the Sixth Circuit Court actually upheld a ban on gay marriage. Stay with me here now. They upheld a ban on gay marriage based on race because Loving, the case that we just talked about, only applied to opposite-sex marriage. It didn't apply to same-sex marriage, and so a black man had married a white man, and they upheld it on the basis of Loving didn't apply. So there you go. I'm not making this up, folks. In 2000, and I think it was 416, somewhere in there, Obergefell, I don't remember what year that case was. The Loving case was cited over and over again in striking down gay marriage bans. So you have to ask yourself this question. What reasonable person would believe that the Supreme Court would revisit interracial marriage to begin with, and that Clarence Thomas himself would somehow or another lead the charge to strike down interracial marriage and overturn Loving versus Virginia? What would it even take to do that? Well, for starters, and Ms. Strickland doesn't seem to understand this, you would actually have to have a case. You'd actually have to have someone who was told, no, you can't get married because you're opposite races or different races or whatever. You'd actually have to have that case. You'd have to have a law that they violated. So in other words, you'd have to have a situation where some state, let's just pick one, Alabama, says, oh, abortion's been struck down. States' rights are back. Let us pass a law then that says no miscegenation no more. And the state of Alabama would actually have to debate this law in its legislature, pass this law in its legislature, have a governor stupid enough to sign it, have its own courts not strike it down as unconstitutional in accordance with the 14th Amendment and Loving, have two people who are opposite race get married, get arrested, be punished, appeal it to the district court, the federal courts, go through the district court, which would have to not strike it down. You'd have to have a circuit court uphold it, again, in the face of Loving, before it could finally go to the United States Supreme Court on appeal, and 4 judges would have to go, yeah, let's hear that case. That seem a little unrealistic to anybody else? Is it just me? I mean, I'm not trying to be rude here or anything, but that seems a tad bit far-fetched. Then if it even got to the Supreme Court at that point, who are the 5 judges that are going to say, yeah, interracial marriage is just fine with us? Name names. Give me the name. And you can't say Clarence Thomas because, again, Clarence Thomas is married to a white woman. He's probably not going to. It's unrealistic to think that he would, even if you want him to, because it makes you feel better about yourself. It's unrealistic. Anybody who stops to think about this will go, that's just stupid. And yet politicians all over the country, particularly on the Democrat side, people like Marilyn Strickland, are out there screeching that this is going to happen. They're out there screeching that it's going to happen. It's going to happen. They're going to overturn interracial marriage because they overturned overturned abortion, which they really didn't. They overturned Roe, which is about privacy, and sent it back to the states. Does she actually believe this, or is it just something that she's screeching? And she's not the only one, by the way. Newspapers all over the country are picking this up, going, see, the leak support draft raises fear of future for gay marriage. Lest you think it's just some weird paper, the Daily Beast has the same headline. If the Supreme Court can overturn Roe v. Wade, it can ban interracial marriage. It could, I guess, in theory. But, what's it going to take to get there? Even the New York Times. If Roe falls, is same-sex marriage next? USA Today, abortion draft opinion fallout. Could rights for same-sex marriage contraception be next? Now, not only are we going to take away the right to gay marriage, now we're going to take away your right to the pill. Or condoms. Aren't condoms technically contraception? Are we going to say to people, you can't buy those either? Politicians need activity. It's their substitute for achievement. You understand that, right? Politicians need drama and conflict to drive their activity. They need attention because, as I so often say, they're attention whores, and attention whore is going to attention whore. It's what they do. The supporters of Thomas and others will say, no, they're not going to do that. What are you, insane? But it doesn't stop the likes of Marilyn Strickland from going out there screeching that if they overturn Roe, gay marriage is next. And the question you got to ask yourself, number one, would any state even actually pass such a law? And even if they did pass such a law, would it get past their governor for veto? And if it did get past that, would it get past their own courts? And if it get past that, would it get past a district court or a circuit court or the Supreme Court? And the answer is absolutely not. Would some state actually pass that law? I mean, it's possible. Nothing's beyond conception anymore, but would it stand? Would it actually make it that far? The answer is absolutely no. It wouldn't. But people like Marilyn Strickland need you to believe that it will. They need you to believe it. The problem is, I don't know if she actually believes it or not. It's possible that she actually believes this nonsense. It's also equally possible that she's just an ignoramus, that she has no clue how the Supreme Court actually works, how these cases actually work. She has no clue about Loving versus Virginia. She has no clue about any of this stuff. It's very possible she has no idea. She's just, Paul Ryan, I didn't know that wasn't in the Constitution. If she does believe it, how did she get elected to Congress? How could someone that stupid get elected to Congress? And if she doesn't really believe it and she's just using it as activity to rile up her base, won't they eventually figure it out? Won't people eventually figure it out when Roe v. Wade goes away and gay marriage doesn't? Won't they all kind of go, oh, wait, you said the sky was falling. But it didn't. You'd hope that would be the case. You would hope. But in today's world, political discourse has been reduced to 140 characters of screeching. They're going to do this. And when it never happens, nobody ever goes back and says, well, why didn't that happen? Nobody ever stops to think, yeah, I don't think that's how that works. Nobody ever says like that woman in the commercials. It's not how this works. Not how any of this works. We just go, the boogeyman. The sky is falling. And then we reelect people like Marilyn Strickland to Congress because I don't know why.